Hello everybody, it's time for another Batman figure review, and today it is the turn of McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman vs Superman Batman. We're getting quite a lot of movie-related Batman figures from McFarlane Toys lately, and that's definitely a good thing because I like me the cinematic Batman. And surprisingly, this represents the first time that McFarlane Toys have actually produced a 7-inch scale Batman from this film. We've had Batman from the Justice League and we've had him from The Flash, but we haven't had him from Batman vs Superman. So let's kick off by taking a look at the packaging. If you've had a DC Multiverse figure in the past, you'll know what to expect. There's no real surprises here. It is mostly window display where we can see the figure and his various accessories and that trading card that we see in the background, which happens to be the movie poster. The rest of it is black borders and not an awful lot going on. There is an inlay tray, whatever you want to call it, which is a collage effect, which is blue and white, which helps the figure pop in that packaging, and it works pretty well. It's pretty standard, and there's not an awful lot to talk about here. Likewise, if we flip it and look at the side panel, I'm always complaining about this. I find this very bland. We just have the name of the character and the film that it's from, and you know, it's not too distinct if you want to stack a lot of these up on your shelf on the side profile. It would be really great if they had an image here, as we've seen them do with other lines, like their Batman animated series line. They could have taken a movie poster, whatever, character portrait, and had this on maybe some newly commissioned illustrated artwork. This would look really attractive. As it is, it just feels like a missed opportunity. But if we look at the back of the packaging, we have the movie poster. This is largely text-free, which is great, and this is quite displayable and quite nice touch. So this is great stuff. I like this. This works very well. So that's all well and good, but how does the actual figure stand? Well, when we take him out of the packaging, I think on first impression he looks pretty cool. I think he definitely looks like the Batman that we'd expect from this movie, and there's plenty of detailing in the costuming, and the paints seem quite nice and appropriate as well. If we start off by taking a look at the head sculpt though, there are a few issues. I think the sculpt itself is fine. The ear ratio looks to be more or less accurate. In terms of the likeness, I'm not really seeing Ben Affleck here. I think the version from The Flash is actually a lot closer. This just looks slightly off to me. I'm not too keen on the expression on the lips there either. It looks a little bit too smiley, I guess, a little bit too warm. Not something that you'd associate really with Ben Affleck's Batman at all. Also, the paint apps here look a little bit sloppy. I mean, there's not an awful lot going on the cowl, but if we look at where the cowl meets the face there, we can see a lot of bleed, and the eyes are a little bit basic as well. So, not hugely loving this head sculpt, I've got to be honest. This is very disappointing. The torso, though, is actually very cool. I do like the body sculpting. I think this works really well. I think this is a brand new sculpt. All the details, the grain there is actually sculpted in, and we actually have a paint wash running through this to really emphasize that sculpt and draw out some of the details. We can see some darker parts and some lighter patches that give it that leathery effect, and I think that works really well. Likewise, I do like that the bat symbol is actually sculpted on as a separate piece that's kind of stuck down, which gives it a bit of depth and texture, which is cool. And I like the gauntlets that we see here as well. Again, they are specific to Ben Affleck's Batman, and I think this looks really good. So top marks for this. I think this looks really good. Likewise, I really like the belt. I think they've done a good job with the paints on the utility belt, making it look authentic, and it's got that sort of rugged feel as if it's got texture to it, which is very nice. So I think they've done a good job with this. The boots, again, are specifically sculpted to this version of the costume, which is pretty good, but we're seeing a real lack of paint wash here, and I seem to recall that this version of the costume actually had gold elements to the boots. Now, that might be from Justice League, so I might be getting that slightly confused. So perhaps that's one I need to go away and research a little bit more. But obviously, if it is supposed to have gold elements, it's definitely missing here. Pleasingly, he does come with a cloth cape, which might indicate that we might get a Batman vs Superman Batmobile further down the road. This is a very light cotton. You can see the light coming through it, unfortunately, but there's plenty of material here, so when you open up the full wingspan, you can see it's quite a good girth on this, and there is enough to just drape around him as well. Articulation-wise, he does have a ball joint at the top of the neck there, so he can spin his head all the way around 360 degrees. He can tilt it left and right a little bit as well, and of course, it will also nod up and down, and he can actually look up a pretty good distance, actually, which is great. Now he's got a butterfly wing joint in the shoulder, which I love. I think this is absolutely fantastic, and I'm really pleased to see that here. He also got a ball joint there in the shoulder, allowing the arm to really reach out. There's a bicep swivel, a double joint at the elbow, and then we have that standard ball joint that McFarlane Toys love using on their DC Multiverse figures, which I actually hate, in the wrist. But it does rotate all the way around, and it will hinge forwards and backwards as well. He has a ball joint in the upper torso, allowing him to swivel from side to side and lean left and right, a really healthy distance, which is fantastic. But he can also swivel at the waist from side to side, and he can bend forwards and backwards a really healthy distance, which is fantastic. So he can crunch right the way over and lean all the way back, which is brilliant. He has ball joints in the hips, allowing the legs to kick out to the side. You can kind of swivel the top of the thigh there as well. The leg will kick forwards, it'll come backwards, and there's a double joint at the knee, allowing that lower leg to kick all the way back. And then he has an ankle pivot, allowing the foot to hinge forwards and backwards, but also swivel from side to side. Finally, he also has some toe articulation as well. There's a hinge here, which is brilliant. Now, McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse line tend to be pretty light on accessories, they tend to be quite tight in this area, but thankfully this version of Batman actually comes with an additional pair of closed fists, 2 batarangs, and his grapple gun. The grapple gun is really quite cool, it's nicely sculpted. Sadly there's no paint apps on this at all, which is a shame, lets it down a little bit, and it fits very snugly into his grip as well, which is great. I'm not sure when it comes to the proportions, this looks slightly too large to be honest, but I'm willing to overlook it. However, if we look at the batarangs, these definitely look way out of proportion. These are actually really thick and chunky, and they don't look right. These should be a lot smaller, surely, and a lot slimmer. So this looks a little bit strange. So then, all in all, this is actually a really nice fig, and I'm happy to give it 4 stars. I really love the articulation. I think the sculpting, for the most part, certainly on the body, is really, really nicely done. There's some fun accessories, and the paint apps are actually quite nice. Plus, he comes with that nice, soft cape as well, which I happen to really love this, especially when we start thinking about maybe what other accessories we might get, including a Batmobile, which would be really, really cool. Now, in terms of the downside though, why have I knocked off that 1 star? Well, as I said at the beginning of the video, the head sculpt, less than ideal. It's not really a strong likeness, and there's some paint application issues there. And then those accessories, they just don't look like they're quite to scale. And plus, they could have done with a lick of paint. But otherwise, that's the very small stuff in the scheme of things. And this is actually a quite nice 7-inch Batfleck. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe, as there'll be plenty more videos soon.